This video is intended solely for educational and documentary purposes. It contains no ideology or propaganda. Ghosts in the Atlantic. The Atlantic. Hundreds of miles of dark waters, endless waves, storms, silence, and death. This is where the German U-boats hunted, silent predators made of steel, patrolling the vast expanse of the ocean. You never saw them, you only felt them. In the moment they struck, they sank ships without warning, vanished without a trace, changed their routes constantly. Even Allied admirals referred to them as the ghosts of the Atlantic. But these ghosts had a brain, a machine, that made them invisible. Enigma. A cipher never meant to be broken. Enigma, the German cipher machine, built to make U-boat communications unbreakable. Every order, every report, every message about a sinking ship passed through its complex mechanism. Every message, a random chaos of letters. Without the key, it was nothing more than meaningless symbols. But in the 1940s, Enigma became target number one for British and American intelligence. The British called the mission ultra-secret. The goal, intercept the U-boat's conversations before they struck again. Bletchley Park, where codes came to die. In Britain, at a secretive country estate known as Bletchley Park, mathematicians, engineers, and cryptanalysts worked around the clock. This was a different kind of battlefield, a war fought over every letter, every morning key, every rotor setting of Enigma. Alan Turing and his team created a machine we now call a computer. It processed millions of combinations each day. But that wasn't enough. The problem? The Germans changed their keys daily. If you didn't break the cipher in time, the intercepted data became worthless. Allied command needed a second strategy, a more dangerous one. Secrets captured at any cost. They decided to hunt the submarines themselves. British destroyers and corvettes received a deadly mission: attack, block, force the U-boats to surface, and then attempt to capture them. It was nearly suicidal. German crews preferred to destroy their vessels rather than surrender them to the enemy. These U-boat capture missions became a secret war within the war. Their successes buried under layers of classified reports. Until 1944, until U-505. Operation Capture U-505, a story that stayed silent. It happened off the coast of Africa. An American task group under Captain Daniel Gallery detected U-505. After a series of devastating depth charge attacks, the submarine was forced to the surface. The German crew abandoned ship in panic. And then, the race against time began. American sailors boarded the submarine. Inside, smoke, steam, flooded compartments, and Enigma, the cipher machine. Code books, radio logs, all seized, intact. It was a breakthrough, but it remained an absolute secret. Not even the Red Cross knew the fate of the captured crew. Only decades later did the world learn that U-505 wasn't destroyed. It had been towed to Bermuda, and its data turned into weapons. Weapons against the very U-boats that once ruled the seas. When ciphers became lifelines. Capturing U-505 gave the Allies more than documents. It gave them algorithms, daily key sheets, the blueprint of German encryption. Bletchley Park began decoding in real time. The result? Thousands of sailors' lives saved, convoys rerouted, U-boats trapped. The Kriegsmarine was no longer invisible. Enigma lost its power. But the war was far from over. Life and death inside a submarine. Inside a U-boat, life was hell. Cramped quarters, humidity, the constant threat of flooding. Submarine crews were isolated from the world. They didn't know if their messages were intercepted. They didn't know when death would find them. Most U-boats found their graves in the depths, nameless, forgotten. And those who survived only after the war discovered the truth, that their encrypted messages had been read, that their deadliest weapon was transparent to the enemy. And yet, Enigma became a symbol of technological ambition, a symbol of Nazi Germany's confidence, and a symbol of how a simple machine could decide the fate of thousands. Today, Enigma rests in museums, but once it was the heart of submarine warfare, the war the world never saw, but felt in every convoy attacked, in every sinking ship's final scream, in every radio transmission filled with meaningless letters that one day stopped being meaningless. Operation Decoy. Summer of 1943, the Atlantic Ocean, the water cold and dark, depths reaching over 1,500 meters, where sunlight never penetrates. A different war was being fought, a war without witnesses. The U-boats of the Kriegsmarine were not just weapons, they were phantoms. Their real target wasn't ships, it was fear, and fear ruled the Atlantic. But against fear, brute strength is not enough. You need intelligence. The Allies understood this. In the war rooms of London and Washington, a bold idea was taking shape, insane, yet precise. Don't destroy the submarines, capture them. Don't sink them with their crews. Seize the hulls, the instruments, the ciphers. Gain control not over the steel, but over the information. This became the foundation of Operation Decoy. At the heart of the project, Bletchley Park, the British Cryptanalysis Center. There, codebreakers worked day and night. They knew every second lost could cost the lives of Allied sailors. They studied signals, searched for patterns, but they lacked the most critical piece, the German code tables. And so, the order was given. Into the Atlantic went the hunters, not to kill, to capture. Among them, the legendary escort carrier USS Guadalcanal, and 5 destroyer escorts, all under the command of Daniel Gallery. The objective was clear: find a U-boat, force it to the surface, board it, take it alive. A mission bordering on madness. Question to the audience. Now imagine yourself. You're the captain of a destroyer. A German U-boat lies ahead. It's armed, ready to strike. And your orders? Hold fire. Could you follow such a command? Gallery trusted his men, but did they trust themselves? Every sailor knew one mistake, and they'd all be dead. First contact. June 4th, 1944. Early morning, the weather miserable, visibility poor. The Atlantic tossed the warships like toys. Suddenly, a signal. The radio operator reports submerged contact. Sonar confirms it's not a whale, not a reef, it's a submarine. U-505. The crews prepare for battle. Depth charges armed. On the bridge, Gallery gives the order, but not the one they expected. Hold your fire, no independent action. Minutes crawl by. The ships close the circle. Then, a burst of explosions. Water erupts, foam, oil, debris. But the submarine doesn't sink, it surfaces. Why? No one knew. Not then. But for the Americans, it was a sign, an opportunity. They did not fire, they closed in. The deckside drama. As the boarding party stormed U-505, no one knew if Germans were still alive inside, but everyone knew. The scuttling charges could be triggered at any second. Darkness, steam, water up to their knees, the smell of oil, and amid the chaos, shouting in German, in English, and sometimes just screams of fear. One sailor from the USS Pillsbury, barely 20 years old, would later recall, "I didn't understand what I was doing, I just kept moving forward. I thought I was going to die." But they made it. They sealed the valves, they shut down the circuits, and the U-boat went silent. That was the moment when war paused, to take a breath, to witness the triumph of reason over chaos. The symbolism of the moment. U-505 didn't just become a trophy, it became a symbol. The Kriegsmarine's cursed submarine had become an Allied intelligence victory. A paradox? Yes. But that was the reality of the silent war in the Atlantic. Germany had prided itself on its U-boats, but their vulnerability wasn't in their steel. It was in their secrets. Every Enigma table, every radio log, every scrap of paper, all of it became a weapon, not forged from gunpowder, but from knowledge. Challenge to the audience. Now tell me honestly, if you were the German captain, would you have ordered the scuttling? Or, like Captain Lang, would you have simply surrendered? That's not a rhetorical question. It's a choice between honor and saving the lives of your crew. Conclusion. The capture of U-505 wasn't just an episode of war, it was a lesson. A lesson that victory isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about understanding. Because in war, metal isn't the only thing that matters. People do, their minds, their decisions. And that night in the Atlantic, it wasn't firepower that won. It was reason. The secret race of the Codebreakers. What truly decided the fate of the war beneath the Atlantic? Was it torpedoes, depth charges? No, it was radiograms, streams of encrypted messages pulsing through the ether, deciding the fate of entire convoys. But one obstacle stood above all others, the Enigma. Hundreds of intercepted transmissions every day, endless chains of meaningless letters, a code believed to be unbreakable. German cryptographers were certain their cipher would endure. They were wrong. In Bletchley Park, in the quiet of an old English mansion, a team worked in secrecy. People once labeled as eccentrics, mathematicians, chess champions, engineers. Perhaps they were the ones who truly stopped the war, yet their names remained classified for years. Among them was Alan Turing. His machine, a marvel of logic and perseverance, could do what most deemed impossible. Picture this: thousands of messages to decipher every single day, and the key changed every 24 hours. Every delay meant another convoy lost, another ship sent to the ocean floor. How many lives rested on those rotating rotors? That was the question Turing wrestled with each night. But Enigma wasn't the only target. The Americans pursued a different approach. They hunted the submarines themselves, capturing radio silence. When U-505 was captured, it wasn't just another submarine taken. It was a breakthrough in the cryptographic war. Inside the boat, complete radio logs, copies of every message, current cipher keys, manuals for updating codes. For the first time in the entire war, the Allies gained full access to the communication system of Germany's submarine fleet. But with this discovery came fear. What if the Germans found out? What if they learned that U-505 wasn't lost, that their codes had fallen into enemy hands? And so U-505 became a ghost ship, its crew isolated, the vessel itself hidden away. For peace, for victory. Its existence remained silent. Imagine it, an entire warship that no one was allowed to know existed. The Americans kept this secret for nearly a year. Silence, a silence that saved lives. The technological secrets of submarine warfare. But U-505 wasn't just about ciphers. It was about technology. Every valve, every pump, every torpedo tube. American engineers studied it like surgeons, with cold precision. They analyzed the circulation systems, the placement of the batteries, why the diesel engines overheated, why some systems failed in prolonged operations. U-505 was a window into the engineering mindset of the Kriegsmarine. Later, that knowledge shaped the design of future American submarines. But there was another layer. Inside the submarine, human stories, personal belongings, letters, drawings. Someone had mapped out future patrols. Someone else had kept a diary with just one haunting phrase: "Ich bin müde." I'm tired. Technicians saw a machine, but sailors, they sensed something more. This wasn't just steel, it was a grave that by some miracle remained empty. The Intelligence War. On land in Allied headquarters, maps of the Atlantic filled with lines, routes of submarines, movements of convoys. Thanks to the data recovered from U-505, Allied planners began striking with precision. Convoys were rerouted, patrol zones shifted. The Germans were bewildered, submarines vanished. Convoys sailed as if protected by invisible shields. But this victory came at a price. U-505 was never mentioned in official communiques. But this victory came at a price. Its crew was listed as U-505. Only decades later did the truth emerge that this was one of the greatest intelligence coups of the war. A question to the viewer. When you stand before a submarine in a museum, what do you see? Just metal? Or a silent witness to a war fought in ciphers? A war no one saw, but one that decided the fate of thousands? U-505 didn't sink a ship. It saved thousands, without firing a shot, without launching a torpedo, simply by not sinking. And that is the paradox of the underwater war. A war where silence killed more effectively than explosions.